All right, we're live.
All right, time for a little just a fried.
Fire in the hole.
Just a fried egg. Yeah, we're doing Justified today. A show that Nolan recommended to me so long ago. I watched the first few episodes and then took a huge hiatus and finally watched it all. And yeah, it was way better than I thought it would be. Because it's a show that just seems kind of like a serialized, what's the phrase that you said, like crime of the week or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it would be that, or like a silly like sitcom with like pretty decent actors, but it does something a little bit more than that. It's enjoyable to see it unfold. So yeah, that's what we'll be covering today is Justified.
Yeah, we haven't talked about really anything like this yet in terms of something that is so formulaic in a way, which is weird to say because generally the show avoids a lot of the brutal formulas of like network scripted TV. Just because the only other TV shows that we've talked about so far have been, really highly critically acclaimed ones that sort of stand out against the backdrop of just mediocre tedium that TV puts out day in and day out. Because this, like, in adhering to the TV format, just trying to get as many viewers as possible and therefore deliver the same thing or vaguely the same thing episode to episode rather than having that long story in some of the other shows we've discussed so far, gives it, villain of the week or case of the week or murder of the week. Thankfully, it has all of the above. And since he's a marshal and not a, crime scene investigator, they get away from a lot more of the CSI stuff and into something more interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot more to do with like the relationships and the I guess relationship with the area as well of Kentucky. Which obviously is somewhat of a metaphor of the relationships that he has with the people. But yeah, I guess like at least for me, I want to talk about the show because I really enjoyed it and was surprised by how much I enjoyed it because going in, I thought I didn't really know what to expect, but I kind of just expected it to be that like, yeah, crime of the week. And then he shoots someone because he has to justify whatever his morality is because that's kind of how the show like starts, like the pilot does.
The shooting of Tommy Bucks.
Yeah, the show literally opens with him just doing an unjustified murder.
Doing a murder.
Yeah, just doing a nice little murder. And then it ends with Winona basically being like, "You're the angriest man I've ever known," and he's like, "What?"
And then he does another murder.
Because like he's like really chill and calm like in every scene until there's violence that needs to happen, and then he's just like, "Yeah, we're gonna do a murder because you're bad."
He does that face that he does all the time where he gets super serious and then puts his hand on his gun and then 2 minutes later someone's been killed.
Yeah, just complete ego chowing like forever. And I would say like while that could be done really poorly and has been done really poorly, just name a Western. This does it well while adhering to like his character and like his own sort of mistakes or foibles. Yeah, and you find yourself rooting for him because obviously he's the protagonist slash hero, despite having definite flaws, which the show does not duck from his flaws, and I appreciate that he's not just this, perfect standing order of what a hero should be or what a U.S. Marshal should be or someone in that capacity. And they also call into question, law enforcement on the whole in some regards. But at any rate, do you want to like loosely go through the seasons like pretty quickly and then talk about sort of our reactions to the show as well? Actually, before we get into that, sorry, this is a prime opportunity because Justified City Primeval has been released, I don't know, a few months back, maybe a year ago. It's pretty recent. And that basically it picks up his story. Raylan Givens is the main character, played by Timothy Olyphant. But yeah, we'll be covering that after we cover the main series, Justified.
Yeah, so it ran for 6 seasons from 2010 to 2015, 7 to 8 episodes, and then there's that extra, 8 or 10 episodes of City Primeval that came out last year, 2023.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to go through like season 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5?
Yeah, sure.
Or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, we can briefly go through the seasons. I mean, primarily each season goes the same direction. The other character, so behind me here, the guy in the hat is Raylan Givens, the protagonist, and then Boyd Crowder, his childhood friend slash antagonist slash foil slash antihero. The only background is that they dug coal together, which is referenced repeatedly throughout the show. And basically, while Raylan went off and became a U.S. Marshal, Boyd became a career criminal. But Boyd is like a really smooth talking con man, and Raylan is at times a very incompetent and lunk-headed lawman. And they both will basically do whatever they can to uphold what they think is right in the world, which in Boyd's case is just getting as much money as possible. And for Raylan, it is his own sense of justice, which falls directly outside of the law, as we said.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at various points in time throughout the seasons, their objective is to either extricate themselves from Harlan, which is like the town or the county. I forget if it's called Harlan County as well.
Yeah,
but,
Harlan County.
But basically, like, Raylan very much does not want to be there and like keeps trying to convince himself that he's not going to be there. And it's like the Sopranos bit. Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in, just over and over and over again. And he's trying to get out. And then Boyd at times wants to be there and wants to like make the most of him being there. But then at other times he wants to also get out. And the means to that is like the means that Boyd has is money to get out. And then the means of Raylan's is like solving cases in order to get out, or just completing the objective, whatever it is in the season. Because sometimes it's a case, and then other times he's like, that guy's too bad, and someone's got to do something about it. And that usually just means that he's gonna strong arm them into a showdown in some way or another. That's like what he always tries to do usually.
Yeah, well, the whole point is he's basically being punished by the Marshal Service to stay in the like Lexington office in Kentucky for the Marshals because of what he does in the first episode. Because like he's originally stationed in Miami, which he likes because it's warm and it's Miami, which people love. And he's reassigned because the guy he shoots is like a mob hitman, and the circumstances under which he shoots him is basically that he goes up to him, tells him to leave town, or he'll come back in 24 hours and shoot him, which he does. And the the actual reason why the show is called Justified is because Raylan always makes sure that his opponents have guns on them so that all of his killings are justified, which is a great bit if you watch the show with other people. Every time Raylan does a kill, to just say justified. It was a justified shooting, which he says all the time because, he had a gun, so I was allowed to shoot him
And he has
repeatedly.
a badge. So big badge, good man can shoot non-badge gun carrying bad man. Yeah.
But since he does this repeatedly in public in front of civilians, he often gets in trouble. So that's the main reason they reassign him to Kentucky, because they think his brand of justice will play out a little better, not only in Kentucky and Lexington, but near his hometown of Harlan.
And
so
also
he's
because
like,
he probably won't just be executed by like the Miami like scum of going after him.
oh yeah, I mean specifically by like the cartel, because the whole point is that by shooting Tommy Bucks, he's upset the I forget which cartel it is. I don't even know if they mention it. It's just some vague, shadowy, like the Mexican cartel. They don't do very good with like big organizations, because they just mention like, oh, it's the Dixie Mafia, oh, it's the Detroit Mob, it's the Mexican cartel.
Yes.
They probably mention a more specific region at some point, but like it never matters because they don't really do enough in Mexico the way that a show like Breaking Bad does.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really that important, the Miami contingent. But the first season the first season, just the way it introduces characters is wild. Like the as you mentioned, the other guy that's in the shot with Raylan is Boyd Crowder, and he's just opens up with him with a giant like swastika on his arm, and you're like, oh, okay, so this guy is a white supremacist. Got it. Interesting. And then Ava Crowder is also introduced. The way she's introduced is that she kills her husband, who is like really abusive to her. She like goes up behind him with a shotgun and blows his head off. So you're like, yay, this woman stood up for her, or stood up to her abuser. And so Raylan comes back, and they clearly have a history. And then there's stuff to settle between Raylan and Boyd, and then there are other tangential like alligator teeth wearing hicks that are walking around spewing
Dewey
out.
Crow.
Yeah, Dewey Crow just spewing out just really really hickish stuff. And Raylan's response to these guys is he just smashes his face on his steering wheel. Yeah, he has a very violent and aggressive manner of meting out punishment and the law, as it were. This season is the one where Boyd turns to God, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it should be noted that Raylan functionally never really changes throughout the show. Like season to season, he may be more or less violent based on what's going on around him, but really the like catharsis of the show is all through Boyd, because Boyd is the one that goes through the most ups and downs in his pursuit of like either escaping from Harlan or like transcending the criminal life in a way where he like runs an operation of his own, because that's always his goal. Is he has a scheme or a con, and he wants to grow that con until it eventually just gets out of his hands and becomes untenable, and then explosions happen usually. I mean,
Yeah.
he's known as the Fire in the Hole guy, which is the Elmore Leonard story that this is based off of, Fire in the
Yes.
Hole.
Yes. Yeah, it's based off of a book or a series of short stories. I think it's a book. Actually, it is a short story.
Yeah, there are books about Raylan Givens, but there's one story called Fire in the Hole that I think he was initially introduced in.
yeah.
I think City Primeval may have been a whole Elmore Leonard book that is just about Raylan Givens, but there's like other short stories that are partially adapted for the show. And you can see that in some of the ways that the show gets like the criminal detail, right?
Hmm.
Because as the show goes on, it gets better at folding more and more characters in, but all of the characters are just various mobs or cartels. Like they never introduce like, oh, here's another branch of the police that are all good guys. And if it does introduce like an FBI agent, it's just immediately like, oh yeah, he's dirty, he's no good.
Yes. Yes. Um,
But yeah, I
I
just wanted to mention that about Boyd changing with you asking if this is the one where he like gets religious, because that's like his arc in season 1 as he goes from just like white supremacist to preacher, and then just he doesn't even know.
yeah, and this very much establishes the fact that Boyd is very, very good with rhetoric in front of a crowd. Like they just established that he can sway any crowd using ethos, pathos, and logos at his disposal. I don't want to go episode by episode just because there is a ton of crazy. Yeah,
No,
that would take way too long.
way too many villain of the week or like
Yes.
escapee of the, because there's episodes where it's like a dentist has to run from the mob.
Yeah, I forgot
or
about
the
that one.
ever favorite like episodic bits in the show, which is just the marshals have to either catch a fugitive or transport a fugitive, and then Raylan gets distracted like either with his love triangles or eating ice cream, and then the fugitive escapes and Raylan has to go hunt them down and shoot some people.
Right. There's some pretty lady who's having trouble with her car, and he's like, "Can I help you with that, ma'am?" And she's like, "Can I eat your ice cream cone?" And he's like, "Oh, no." And then, yeah. Uh, I just scrolled past the episode with Travers. Oh,
Travers.
oh no. That's the one with
The bookie.
it's yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of like quirky side characters that like kind of pop in and out of the show.
And the reason we're
Uh,
skipping over it is not because they're not fun or good. It's more of just take forever to cover, and we don't want to just do like summary based
no.
discussions.
It should be noted that this is a show I would recommend to anyone who either likes westerns or likes like pulpy sort of detective slash lawman stuff, or just likes like crime shows, because
Hmm.
it is thoroughly enjoyable throughout. Even like the weaker episodes or storylines are usually pretty entertaining.
And a strong point of the show is that every time well, not every time, but when they introduce a character that they have designs for using them like later on, it's really satisfying seeing that progression. Like a character that's introduced in this first season who you just like are like, okay, is this guy going to be villain of the week or what's going on with him? Like Wynn Duffy, for instance. Great character, especially like how he progresses throughout and how the writers like lean on him in order to do something that triggers Raylan or whatever.
Literally takes 5 seasons for him to finally mature into a full-fledged character rather than just supporting man.
Yeah, but like the fact
who
that
loves women's tennis.
yeah, but like the fact that he's in the first season, I'm saying is great. Instead of like I find myself critiquing some shows because I mean, we'll see that in season 2, but they'll introduce a baddie in the season at the beginning, and you're like, oh, okay, so this guy, there's going to be a face off with him and the main character towards the end. Got it. And then we'll see if did they die or not. Like, that's going to happen with a number of the people. But I guess the big narratives, if you will, or the big arcs, is kind of the continued back and forth between Raylan and Boyd. Then his father Arlo and Raylan. Raylan and Ava, and then Raylan and his wife / ex-wife Winona. And then I was missing one.
Boyd's dad.
Yeah, Boyd's dad, Bo. The names in this show also are absolutely ludicrous. Like, if you don't have a picture attached to the person, it's so easy to get lost, even when you do, because there's Bo Crowder, Boyd Crowder, Dewey Crow. Like, all of those names are functionally the same in my mind.
It's definitely nowhere near as bad as some other crime show. Like I've mentioned before, my two favorite examples are The Americans and Boardwalk Empire, where The Americans introduces characters that like just don't show up again for 4 seasons, and then you're supposed to know who they are. And then there's Boardwalk Empire, which basically the whole first season is like a pilot episode. And so it introduces like 50 characters in the first season, and then they all come in and out throughout the show. But those names, there's literally a bit in the one episode where a character says like, oh yeah, we're supposed to go and pick up Lucky Luciano, and the guy is like, no, not Lucky, Nucky.
Oh no.
And it's like, uh-oh, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And it is, because the characters all have similar names.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So, I mean, the overarching narrative basically ends with Bo trying to get his son Boyd on his side, and then there's a shootout at the end between Boyd, Raylan, and Ava is there that they're like vaguely protecting.
Well, it's all because the plot is basically
Bo kidnapped Ava.
Ava shoots Boyd's brother off screen before the show starts and kills him. So Boyd wants revenge for his brother's death. So at the end of the first episode, Raylan shoots Boyd in the arm or chest, barely not killing him, which becomes
the first
a theme
episode,
between the two. Yeah. And then that's the plot of the season, is basically the fallout from Ava upsetting the Boyds, because the Crowders, because the Crowders are like basically the like main criminal element that runs drugs and guns in Harlan. And so Boyd goes through all of these problems with his dad, as you were saying, trying to win him over to his side, while Raylan tries to win him over to sort of help the police.
Yeah, so Bo also kidnaps Ava, and then Johnny shows up, who is Boyd's cousin, right?
Yeah.
And it's really brutal. Bo just shoots him with a shotgun, and he's just lying there dying.
It's because Johnny tipped off Boyd at one point, and Bo found out, so he shoots Johnny in retaliation.
Yeah.
Doesn't kill him though.
Johnny does not. Yeah, Johnny does not die actually. But at any rate, Bo gets his head blown off by one of the police people who are like surrounding the place to try to save Raylan. They just
he gets shot by a Mexican sniper.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Mexican cartel sends people there, and they shoot him.
Well, they were there to do a deal with Bo, because Bo was trying to get guns into town, but Boyd upset the balance by blowing up the Mexican's truck. So they assassinate Bo, and then
very convoluted.
Raylan and Boyd end up going after the Mexicans for different reasons.
Yes, and then the police show up, and Boyd get away. Boyd gets away.
And Raylan gets away with like 8 just confirmed kills, like just pure good old justified shootings.
Yeah, the only reason Boyd gets away is because Raylan's gun is empty, and he's like, "You're the only friend I have left in this world." So then Raylan does the bit where he points the empty gun at him and pretends shooting him. Yeah. So then, oh boy, okay, season 2.
Yeah, the only other character we didn't mention that we probably should.
Is his mom?
Who keep
Or his stepmom?
No, Helen is not too important. No, I was gonna say Art Mullen, his boss, because like the main structure of the show that sort of glues the longer term plots together is, like we mentioned, the villain of the week stuff, which is where like any show, he shows up, he goes to the home base, which is just the uh marshal's office, and his boss Art Mullen basically will go, you shouldn't have done all those murders, and then he just smiles and goes like, hey, you want to get drunk? And then he just either issues him to go do more murders or go do like a basic case.
Or do his paperwork, to which he's like, all right, time to get some whiskey and get this paperwork done.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's worth mentioning because
He
Art
definitely
kind of
is, for
keeps
sure.
the structure together. He's like the reason Raylan has to stay. So he
Yes.
constantly is a reminder to the audience, like, Raylan's not allowed to leave yet because vague people up in the government said so. And they're like old friends because they used to teach people how to shoot at a gun range. So that
In
is like
Glencoe.
the sort of in-universe explanation for why he shoots everyone directly in the head. Like, if he wants to, he can just kill someone instantly. So when he doesn't kill people, it's usually like, he let them
your
live for
eyes-
some reason.
Your eyes widen at the fact that he didn't.
But yeah, on to season 2. I'll try not to get too
No,
bogged down
that's fine. What was his name again? I forget the chief's name.
Art department, Art Mullins.
Art department. Oh no.
Art Mullins.
It's so hard for me to just remember some of these people's names.
There's Art Mullen, Ava Crowder,
we don't need to go through them.
Givens.
Nope. Moving on. Season 2 is the Bennett clan. We have
Dickie Doyle, Mags.
Shh. No, don't stop. No, that's the worst name. Every time they said his name, it just hurts because it sounds like they say
Coover.
Yeah, it sounds like they say Cooper, but they're saying Coover in a southern accent, so it's Coover.
Coover.
Yeah. Anyway, Margot Martindale is the head of. She's the family matriarch of the Bennetts. And she
pot farmers.
She I don't want to go too far into what happens in the first episode, but it sets up everything that's to come, because she just seems like this somewhat grouchy but also like kind-hearted woman who likes her what the hell is that called, moonshine, and she's a shop owner. Yeah, she's a store owner, and like, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like season 1, there's like an inciting incident, and then that expands the plot outward as the season progresses.
Yeah, it involves a girl whose dad is killed by
Loretta.
Yes, by the Bennett clan. Yeah, that's basically the inciting incident. And you're like thinking that Mags Bennett is like this kindly like woman, and then you realize that she is just definitely not. It's all a facade.
This is the hardest part.
Yeah, so
After she poisons the dude.
She gives moonshine that poisons people.
It was in the glass. She puts it in the glasses first, and then that way she can trick them and also get drunk and whatever.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it's even more convoluted than that. It's like Loretta's dad calls the police because Loretta's being harassed by a pedo that works for Mags as a pot farmer.
Oh God, that's
right. And so
right.
she kills him specifically because he called the police, but also he was like trying to like sell his own weed or something weird. And then so because of his death, that is what gets Raylan involved, and Raylan has all this old family history with the Bennetts.
And also she does take in Loretta, who she does like really care for.
in
as
the way
well.
that like you care for a dog. Yeah,
Yes, but like
it's slightly more than that, but
yeah,
you are right that they often portray her because she's played by Margot Martindale, who's like one of the greatest TV character actors to ever live. Um, she's like one of the smartest characters that's in the show in terms of what she's able to do, the same way Boyd does of like convincing people to do things that are not in their best interests, but also she's able to move things behind the scenes. Like she's both intimidating and kindly. So she's all of these like she's able to fulfill many roles and run like a small drug empire very effectively. But it's all under the guise of like selling off the Bennett land at the top of a mountain to let this big company come in and start mining or fracking, maybe. I don't remember if it's coal mining or fracking. It might be both.
yeah. Um, there's a bunch of random shit that happens in this season, like Gary, Winona's husband slash ex-husband.
Yeah, her cuck
Yeah,
husband Gary. That Raylan just cucks him like super early into this season, if he didn't already in the last season.
he did in the last season, like multiple times.
He like breaks into their house and just threatens Gary in the middle of the night on more than one occasion.
Yes, which causes him to go out and buy adult diapers. Yeah,
Raylan is
not actually, but yeah. Okay, can we jump to the end here?
Yeah, I mean, basically, what's important. Raylan learns nothing through the whole season, and doesn't change.
There's a standoff at Mags's place. The Bennett.
Yeah, everybody gets shot
No.
except Mags, who poisons herself.
Yeah, Loretta wants to shoot Mags.
Right.
And Raylan is able to get there in time, and he's like, "You don't want this. This isn't what you think it is." And then Mags tries to poison Raylan, but then like fucks up the glasses and ends up poisoning herself. Poetic justice.
I think she switches them intentionally.
It seems like it. Yeah, that scene was very confusing to me because it's never like they never state what happens. It's all like you have to intuit what occurs. Because the way I took it is that she poisoned both of the glasses, but she only poisons one, and she takes it herself because basically she can tell it's over.
Well, it's a great moment because she feels bad for Helen having died, Raylan's stepmom.
Yeah.
And she feels bad about like the entire beef between the Givens and the Bennetts. And so she kind of kills herself to try to like make everything even. Because like Raylan and like most of the characters throughout the show that are at least written well, Mags is pretty complicated. And so she does have like a sense of sort of justice and family. Like even though she is just like pretty objectively evil, she at least does, in the same way that Boyd and Raylan have this weird friendship, she has some kind of like, we're from the same place, so like we can agree on certain things, which means I have to die rather than going to jail.
Yeah, it's worth some pieces of note here. Boyd and Ava begin like a relationship basically.
Yeah, complicating the love rectangles even further.
Yes.
Because Raylan sleeps with Ava and Winona in season 1. I don't think we said that explicitly, but
I kind of hinted at that. Raylan's stepmother, Helen, is killed because she isn't giving information, and basically it's a misunderstanding, and the henchmen that were sent there just aren't taking her shit, and she tries to pull a gun on them, and then they just shoot her. Like,
well, it also has to do with Dickie wanting to prove that he's a big man.
Yeah. Yep. So Raylan is going to kill Dickie, but then opts to send him to prison because he he doesn't quite feel remorse, but like Dickie kind of like is able to convince him that it was kind of accidental and he didn't really want to do it.
There's
Yeah.
also a whole plot in the middle of this season that is kind of it takes up a lot of time, which is that Winona steals a bunch of money in an evidence locker at the Marshall station.
That's pretty important. Yeah.
And like it ends up being this like counterfeit money that's marked by the Secret Service, and there's like this whole hilarious subplot where everyone keeps looking directly at the camera and going like, did you know that the Secret Service also handles all currency related matters? It's not the Marshals or the FBI, it's the Secret Service. So
Yeah, they
basically
also lean on the trope of just stupid, silly woman does stupid woman thing. Like she just basically fucks everything up within like one episode because she somehow decides to go into a bank and the bank is getting robbed at the time. And she shouldn't be there because she has bills that are counterfeit because she wants to see if it's actually real. And then a guy makes a pass at her, one of the people who is robbing the bank, and he wants to see things that he shouldn't see beneath her skirt. And then Raylan gets pissed at that, obviously. Yeah.
yeah, that's his ex-wife's pussy that we're talking about here.
Yep. Glad you put it in those terms.
I'm not the one that wrote this show.
No, but anyway, yeah, like the reason why I sound like frustrated with that is just because like it's a really stupid situation and they're just like writing Winona as being an idiot, which is somewhat fine, but like that's her entire function in the show is just pretty ex-wife of Raylan Givens who's dumb, and then they have a kid together, and every time we show her she's either with the kid or doing something stupid.
She's very consistently written as a plot device rather than a character.
Yes, she's
Because
cardboard.
To put down on paper what character, because Ava is a character, like a well fleshed out character that is portrayed well. Winona is not. Winona is just, oh, in this scene she's court reporter Winona, and in this scene she's I want to have an affair on my cuck husband Gary Winona. And then occasionally we just get episodes like which, by the way, I think is a great episode. The like heist one that you're talking about, where she takes the money and
it is a good one. The level of tension is really high too because there's so many things that she wants Raylan to do, and then he's like, "What? You dumb woman! Why'd you do that?"
But then he's willing to do all of it because he does still love her, and he's just like this. And it connects to like his relationship with Boyd, basically, that because he loves Boyd because they're just old friends, he's unwilling to like kill Boyd. He's unwilling to like finally put him to bed, even though he does keep trying to arrest him. And a bit in the show is that every time he arrests Boyd, because Raylan breaks so many laws, Boyd just is allowed to get out of jail.
Yeah, because Art is like, wait, why is Boyd here again? And Raylan's like, what do you mean? He did a bad thing. And he's like, what was the bad thing? And he's like, he was hanging around a shop too long. And he's like, you gotta let him go. That isn't cause to keep him here. And Boyd also is just really smart. So he can just like talk his way out of it or just hang out and let Raylan checkmate himself. Yeah, that's pretty much season 2. That bit that you were talking about with the counterfeit money though does play a larger role, specifically with Art later on.
Well, it's important because Art basically finds out, like he just can tell that Winona and Raylan are acting weird, and he kind of figures out what they did as they return, because they eventually return the money. But he knows, and it poisons his friendship with Raylan, where he's basically just thinks like, oh, Raylan is actually just like a dirty fucking criminal. Like this guy cannot be trusted. And so it takes Raylan like several seasons to win his trust back.
Somewhat.
Well, he wins it back. By like the end of season 4, Art knows that Raylan isn't just like a petty thief, and that he was just kind of protecting Winona out of some weird sense of like husbandry.
Yes.
Yes.
He doesn't like Raylan because Raylan does just assassinate people, but he like forgives him for he's like, you're not a criminal, you're just an idiot.
Right.
Maybe one day you'll make a good lawman. He definitely says that several times to him, but it's not like a particularly well written arc. It's just there to create tension between Raylan and Art to make it seem like maybe Raylan could get reassigned. It seems like a back door the writers wrote into the show to give themselves an out if they needed to, if they ever wrote themselves into a corner, which they kind of just let go away once Art forgives him.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth noting here is that shit, that's the wrong season. Ava gets shot by Dickie. In episode 13 of season 2.
Yeah, Dickie's just out here shooting everybody because he's a big man. He needs to prove
he's a big man that needs to shoot the women. He likes shooting women apparently. But that obviously ticks off Raylan, but also more than ticks off Boyd. Boyd is seeing red. And that's a great lead into season 3.
Oh, I should also mention there's a random character named Shelby Parlow that's involved in a side plot with Boyd about blowing up the mountain. Because remember, there's all these like little side plots that pay off later, which is one of the, I think, best elements of the show is that it actually is pretty deliberate with these things.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that Shelby Parlow is just casually the foreman of the mine.
The side plot is accessed through side characters, and that dude, yeah, he sneakily provides Boyd evidence in order to blow it up, right?
No, Boyd tells him that they're going to blow it up and then helps him to get the other ones caught.
Yeah. Yes, that's
in
right.
In exchange for him not getting in trouble. And so Shelby's like, oh, thanks. And then he also gives Shelby some of the money.
Yeah.
And it sets up Boyd trusting Shelby a lot, which is how Shelby becomes sheriff. And then it all becomes this big thing when it's like, oh, shit, it's because Shelby's actually, Drew Thompson, and he's actually kind of a genius and has been outplaying these idiots for a long time.
Yeah, he is masquerading as this helpless, like, mine attendant or like
foreman.
Foreman.
He's like the boss of the mine.
Big boss. But he acts dumber than he is and acts helpless in many scenes early on. Oh boy. Okay. So season 3, Boyd is pissed at Dickie Bennett because he shot Ava. Raylan doesn't want Boyd to shoot Dickie. Who else is prominent in this series?
Well, Dickie's in jail, so Boyd sends himself to jail, and then he ends up not shooting him because
That's right.
Dickie promises that he can give him like the Bennett estate, which is just money that's like being held somewhere. But
that is a really funny bit. Just Boyd committing a crime to get to prison so he could kill Dickie.
Mm-hmm.
Quarles is introduced in this season. So here's a character that's introduced where you're like, is this going to be a bad man for just this season, or is he going to be bad for a while?
Well, he's introduced through another character from season 1, if you remember.
Wynn Duffy?
We already knew what... No, not through Wynn Duffy. Through the real estate scammer, who is Wynn Duffy's vague boss.
Yes, through Gary's boss's boss.
Yeah, because Wynn Duffy, like, vaguely works with the Dixie Mafia in conjunction with the Detroit mob with that other guy whose name I don't know, and it doesn't matter because he's killed in like the first or second episode by Quarles.
Mm-hmm. So Duffy is prominent. Wynn Duffy is prominent here. This guy just doesn't look like a real person. Like, he just always looks like he's wearing a mask.
Neil McDonough, yeah.
I don't know what it is about his face. Something about the folds of his skin.
His
look
eyes are also
off.
just unnaturally blue.
Yes. And they're also very like crinkly and like slits. Like you can barely see his eyes. He just doesn't look real. He looks like he's wearing a mask. He looks kind of like Predator under the mask. Yeah, so Quarles, speaking of glittering eyes, that scary albino man. Oh boy. What's the big overarching plot in this one? Is this this is the one with no, it's not the one with the mine foreman. That's the next season.
The seasons very logically build off of each other. So season
Limehouse,
3
right?
is
Okay.
basically the Detroit mob wants to move into Harlan again because with Bo now being removed, like the Crowder clan is gone and the Bennett clan is gone. So there's like a huge vacuum of who is going to supply drugs to the area because these poor whites need their drugs. And so the Detroit people are trying to move it in with Quarles being in charge, but Quarles is addicted to opiates, so he ends up being both psychotic and addicted to heroin pills, and basically that doesn't work well. Yeah, you're right. Limehouse is also introduced to this. Limehouse is like a third party sort of neutral group of criminals that are just
Bubba
like
Gump.
barbecue pit masters.
Yeah, it's literally Bubba from that movie, that chocolate box movie. Go on. Just saw short circuiting happen.
Can we just take a minute to read his monologue from Forrest Gump, the best part of the film, when it's just a man listing ways to barbecue shrimp?
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
I don't want to do that. But yeah, that character plays a barbecue guy. Fucking racist writers.
Elston Limehouse. There's some. This is a good point in time where I'd like to mention the racism with the character of Rachel, right? Rachel is a complete cardboard cutout of a character. She is a black detective.
No, they're not detectives. They're U.S. Marshals.
Oh yeah, she's a marshal. Sorry, but
she's like deputy assistant to the deputy whatever.
Anytime they need to lean on any type of racial like trope, they're just like, oh, it's Rachel's turn to, go to the crime scene or whatever. Like the writers, not the characters in the show, but the characters also do that. And she just isn't a character. Like she barely does anything. And it's a shame because they definitely have opportunities to build on her character or like even establish her character, but
there's only 2 other named like marshals that are frequent in the show, and they're Tim and Rachel, and each one can be defined by one characteristic. Rachel is black and Tim is a veteran, and that's the only thing that's important.
Yes, like, they lean on her being black, and then they lean on Tim being an army ranger.
He's good at sniping people, and Rachel is good at not being black. Like that's her character, is that like she is black, but she knows how to pretend to be white, or like it's really, really poorly written. And when it is explored, like there's an episode with her brother who I'm pretty sure they just explicitly say like he's a gangbanger. It's just like pretty gross and exploitative. Which is funny that then they introduce Limehouse and his crew in a way that just like they ignore race as being a component of it. Like it's not just like, oh yeah, black people are good at cooking barbecue. It's like, oh yeah, here's just another interesting group of criminals in this world. And it's just so baffling why like certain elements of the show, they're just like, holy shit, why are they pandering this hard?
Yeah, it's very odd. It's very strange. But yeah,
I have a feeling there were no black writers.
Tim and Rachel serve some odd purposes, somewhat Deus Ex Machina with Tim at times of just like, yeah, this, I mean, why would you not have a guy in the show who's just a veteran who's very good at shooting aside from
good at sniping?
Raylan. Yeah. It definitely pays off dividends in the long run. Whereas
Just
Rachel,
snipes
they're like, yeah, she's good at leadership. She can take over cases. And then yeah, that's what we see later on. Hence the question marks in my tone of voice. At any rate, this season, oh boy. Quarles also, oh god, yeah, I forgot about this disgusting aspect of this. Quarles enjoys raping men / boys. Yeah. There's this one scene where he gives like a monologue about, was it his father that did it to him or someone did?
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the specifics though.
But it's the concept that being diddled then causes you to diddle other people because you're broken, so then you have to spread the virus of being broken on others.
This is a good point in which to talk about. It was something we talked about before we started, which is that the show's biggest strength is also its biggest weakness, which is that it often tries to be exactly what it is. Like, it is a surface level show in a lot of ways. Like, it isn't trying to drive home deeper points or messages. It just wants to be pulpy Western crime drama. But in doing that, sometimes that's the worst part of the show, because when it does discuss heavier topics like race, drug addiction, or, this fucking drug-addled murderous pedophile, it ends up being rather exploitative in a way that's kind of like head-scratching and, I mean, in Quarles' case, just disturbing in a way that doesn't really add to the show and sort of takes away from it, because it's like, you didn't really need to go that dark. Like, we already thought this guy was evil.
Yeah, it gets really dark, and then it doesn't really provide any like answers as to that darkness. It's just like, here's this bad guy who's extra bad and even worse than you imagined.
It tells you exactly what the answers are, which is that you shoot people like this.
Right. Where we mentioned Limehouse. Limehouse owns a barbecue joint. He also is extremely shrewd with his business opportunities, as well as just taking advantage of either people that need something, or they have vast quantities of money, or they need to be hidden, right? He provides protection for people in some manner. Sorry, your video was freaking out. I was trying to continue talking there. And yeah, basically this season ends with there being a standoff because Quarles gets Raylan to take him to Limehouse, and then there's a cleaver involved. Limehouse cuts Quarles' arm off with a cleaver. And Errol kills Quarles, who also shoots Errol at the same time. And Quarles tells them that Arlo killed Bergen.
Yeah, Bergen is like the only good cop that is portrayed throughout the first few seasons. Like, most of the police are just corrupt, except this one guy who's just, oh yeah, I'm one of the good policemen.
Yeah.
And he just gets killed by Arlo randomly because Arlo is
that's right. Yeah.
part of Boyd's crew, because Boyd owns a bar and is a criminal.
That I actually liked the fact that he dies in this manner, because like I definitely felt something for Bergen, because like you said, like he's a well-meaning, like, good cop, and it's like it's very just like dismissive the way that he's killed, and you're like, shit, come on. But that's like good, because it makes you feel Like, it was unjustified.
Well, there's also this season ends with Raylan talking to Winona about Arlo going to jail and saying that Arlo shot Bergen not because he was just trying to kill some random cop, but because he thought Bergen was Raylan. That
Yes.
Arlo was trying to kill his own son, which becomes a theme. It's a theme throughout the show that Arlen like maybe would kill Raylan, and that Raylan like could never kill his father, but hates him because he's a stupid, drunk bastard criminal man.
Yeah, and then Parlo, the former foreman of the mine, starts to get like towards the forefront of the show because he receives an anonymous tip about a character named Devil who was murdered.
By Boyd or
Yes.
Arlo. I don't remember which actually shoots him, but
yeah. But anyway, Johnny gives him that tip. So Johnny is like vaguely trying to make a move on Boyd.
Right, and Boyd, it's a mistake because Boyd is the one that gets Parlo to be the sheriff.
And Arlo basically cops to the murder of Bergen and Devil.
Yeah, so Boyd can stay out of jail.
Yep.
That about does it for this convoluted season. On to the next one that's even more confusing.
Yes. Yes. Oh no. Well, at least we established Parlo.
Yeah. So it turns out that Shelby Parlo is actually a guy named Drew Thompson who, like, decades ago robbed a bank with some guy named Truth.
Waldo Truth.
And then pushed him out of a plane, stealing all the money for himself. And then he pretended to be this Shelby Parlo guy. And yeah, that's just everybody realize Arlo. I think it's because some random criminal finds the bag and Raylan asks Arlo, and then other prisoners find out, and it ends up getting a bunch of people killed in the prison, including Arlo.
Yeah, there's those two kids that break into his house, and they were instructed by someone else to find something in the wall. So they make a hole in the wall to find whatever it is, and that triggers everything. And Raylan, like, it's in Raylan's dad's house, Arlo's house, and Raylan's like, "What the hell? What is this?" And then he confronts his dad, Arlo, about it, and Arlo's like, "I don't know anything about that." And then he's like about to leave, and then he asks him another question, and he's like, "Yeah, just like put it back in the wall." And Raylan's like Raylan puts two and two together because he never mentioned anything about the wall. So like Arlo basically admits to knowing that unwittingly because he mentions that it's in the wall. There's an ex-military police officer introduced here named Colt. Who's Boyd's friend, who's a long-haired, crazy man who loves his heroin, meth, something.
Pills, vaguely opiate pills.
Yeah.
He's just the Tim version of a evil thug, where Tim is a good thug, Colt is the bad one.
Both veterans. Yeah.
Because Tim is the alcoholic veteran who can't deal with his PTSD, and Colt is the opiate addicted veteran who can't deal with his PTSD.
Yeah. Oh God, this is the whole thing with Ellen May. So whose brothel is it? It's Johnny's, right? Johnny owns the brothel.
No. So there's this brothel. What's the name of the brothel? It has a name that sticks like the entire show.
Brothel Justified. Oh God, that wasn't a spider that fell on me. What was that? Audrey's brothel.
Could be. That sounds right. Audrey's, yeah.
Local bar and brothel.
Yeah, it like if the brothel becomes even more important in the next season, but basically it changes hands like repeatedly. Like all the characters just keep trying to buy the brothel, and a bunch of illegal stuff happens there. And hundreds of murders happen there through the whole show. Maybe not hundreds, but dozens. Like there are so many killings that happen at this brothel, and people just keep going back. The guy who owned it was Doyle. Doyle was the current owner. I think Johnny takes over after Doyle is killed. Doyle's just some two-dimensional evil man that beats the women and is bad.
Yes. He's very mean to women.
And Ava ends up like in this whole thing of moving his body in circles, and at the end she gets arrested for being caught with the body. End of this season, that is. And Ellen May is a prostitute who knows about his murder and also knows that Shelby is Thompson somehow.
Yes.
Because he's his daughter or his girlfriend. I don't remember.
She kind of wants to go like get away with him because they have a like father/daughter/lover relationship.
Are they lovers? I don't remember.
It's kind of. I think they kiss each other once, but that's about it. She wants to fill the void of Parlow's wife who has passed away, and he's like very hesitant to do that.
And treats her like a daughter, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, all in all, other than the murder he commits way before the show, Parlow is like a reasonable guy.
Yes.
He's one of the least evil characters we're introduced to.
He's a great character, especially once you realize that he was, whatever his name is.
Drew Thompson.
Drew Thompson, yeah.
Not Waldo True.
Yes. Oh my God, the names. Yeah, so basically the penultimate episode, Thompson doesn't want to enter Witsec until Ellen May is safe. And oh God, I didn't even go into detail about Nick Augustine. Scary Tom Segura is Nick Augustine.
Yeah, there's just more business with the Detroit mob trying to get into Harlan because once again, the whole thing blew up in the last season, so they're trying to sell drugs again.
Yeah, so this whole season is just crazy deals that people are trying to make over people and also money. So anyway, Thompson offers to pay Boyd and give him Johnny if Boyd can get Ellen May. And then Ava goes to Limehouse, and Limehouse is like, yeah, I already let Ellen May go. I don't know what you want. So then Ellen May goes back to the preacher man who loves snakes. There's a preacher guy who's in town, like a revivalist church, and he loves holding snakes, and the snakes never bite. They don't bite him because he can't die because God loves him. And so she goes back there, and oh my God, this is where Colt was sent by Boyd in order to kill Ellen May. And then Tim shows up and kills Colt because you got to have the army veteran kill the army veteran. And then Ellen May goes into Witsec with Thompson. Boyd and Ava decide to move Delroy's body, as you said, before Ellen May can basically testify. Then there's a guy named Picker. Oh.
None of this is important. This is the show at peak convolution, and still it's irrelevant. Because at this point, like, as the show has built on itself season to season, I think season 3's conclusion is the point at which it's like, okay, this is going to get some seriously diminishing returns. Yeah. And then season 4 makes it more complicated, which kept me, the viewer, interested, and it's still pretty entertaining all in all, but it's not really adding anything anymore.
At the end of the day, the scary Tom Segura, Nick Augustine, gets killed because Raylan shows up and just lets it happen, basically.
Yeah, he gets involved in the Detroit mob's
Yes.
Succession, basically.
Yes. And then
Because
Duffy.
of the Tonans.
Duffy and Boyd, yes, which we will get into in the final season. Or I guess they were in here. But anyway, Boyd and Duffy are doing business now, distributing heroin in Harlan.
Or Detroit, right? Not for the Dixie Mafia.
I believe so, yeah. Because Theo retires and Sammy Tonin takes over and he puts Duffy in charge. And then Duffy's like, Boyd, you know lots of people. You have a distribution network. Let's work together. And then they cheers. And then Raylan repairs the hole in Arlo's wall. Yay. And then Art's like, Raylan, so how did this guy die? And Raylan's like, what are you talking about? Talking about Nick Augustine. He does not cop to it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so the last season, right? Or nope. Season 5.
We're not even close to the last season.
Oh boy, a moida of crows.
Yeah, I think the whole show I'm pretty sure was well received. But season 5 does feel like the writers or the showrunners attempt to sort of refocus the show or re-simplify the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because this season is so much more straightforward in terms of just there's a bad group of criminals and they come into town to do some stuff.
Yeah, this one pulls in one of my favorite actors in this show. Not because I think he's a favorite actor, but because he's just really funny in this show. This is
Michael
with Rappaport. Yeah. Who is Dewey Crow's cousin? Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah.
Or, no, he's Daryl.
Oh my God.
Hey,
Dilly and Daryl.
What about Danny?
Shut the hell up.
That's a real crow.
Yep. Yeah.
Dewey, Daryl, Danny, Dilly.
Yeah, so anyway, they're Floridian gator people and they try to like horn in on the money and hoes in Harlan and the drug things in Harlan. And there's Dilly, Daryl, and then the sister who is an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot remember her name.
Wendy.
Yeah, at least it didn't start with a D. Wendy. Okay. All right. What's the overarching point of this one? There's drug trade, people trying to make deals.
The crows are all half-wits except Daryl, who's kind of intelligent. So he comes to...
Wendy is reasonably intelligent as well. She's also
Oh, yeah. I was only counting the men crows because the women are often pigeonholed into not being allowed to do stuff.
Yes, despite Wendy being the smartest of the bunch.
Yeah, but doesn't she betray them?
Yes.
But the crows only come because Daryl wants to own the Audrey's, which somehow Dewey took over. I forget how he ends up. He like buys.
He wins $300,000 in police brutality lawsuit against Raylan.
That's
and
right.
Then he buys Audrey's.
Yeah.
He's like about to get like a blowjob or something like that, and then go in his pool, and Raylan comes and just uses his pistol and shoots it. The above ground pool. And he's like, hey, you can't do that. I want all this money. And Raylan just shoots another hole in it. Oh my God. There's like deals in Mexico as well, I believe.
Is that this season?
So this season starts out simpler because it introduces the Crows as like new players or like the main antagonists of Harlan for the season, but then it just goes back to what it had been doing, which is let's get as many people as possible into the same place and make this as needlessly thread crossed as imaginable.
Yeah.
Johnny dies in Mexico. Or like,
yes.
We barely even talked about how they faked his death and then he comes back in a wheelchair and now he's dead, so it didn't matter. And nothing was learned and his character never changed.
I really like that actor a lot. He does a great job.
Oh yeah, most of the acting in the show is great. Like when I dismiss stuff that
no,
way,
I wasn't saying that you were. I more so just wanted to highlight that I really enjoy, like, despite us not talking about him, he does a really good job in the show.
Yeah, this season sort of blends with the next season for me. The rest of the show I've seen multiple times. This and the final season I've only seen once. And so like the introduction of like Mary Steenburgen as Catherine Hale.
Yeah.
And
just like a casual Mary Steenburgen. She's a great actress and everything. Just a sweet old lady who you never suspect is gonna do anything.
Yeah, she's like Wynn Duffy's mentor's widow. That's how she's introduced into the show. Catherine and then Hale. But then she brings in Sam Elliott, sorry. Yeah, not Sam Shepard. In the next season, not in this season.
Yes.
Also, isn't Eric Roberts in this season?
Eric Roberts? Who the hell is that?
Oh, you'd recognize him. He's Julie Roberts' brother.
Oh yeah, this guy's great.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal character actor.
Wait, what? That's Julia Roberts' brother?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah, Eric Roberts.
What?
A very famous actor.
Holy shit. Oh, yeah, sorry. This guy plays a different person than I thought. He plays the cop guy.
Yeah, he's like a DEA agent.
And his whole function in the show is to show Raylan what might happen to him, basically, if he grows old and continues down this road.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another guy that looks like him, who's that crazy like drunkard, who's like the mine guy, who's Ava's uncle.
Oh yeah.
Who looks kind of like him. I forget that guy's name.
Yeah, that guy's another great character actor. That dude is he in this season?
No, he's in the last one. He might vaguely be shown. But is it Jeff Fahey? Is that who it is?
Yes, that's definitely the actor's name.
Okay.
He's in Lost.
Yeah, they have similar eyes. Him and Eric Roberts. But he's really good. Okay, yeah, sorry, my mind exploded. Just that's Julia Roberts' brother.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm just gonna start with the last episode, and then we can work our way back, like fill it in.
I can't even I'm lost with this season. I don't have anything really to add.
Stuff happens in Mexico. Johnny gets killed. Raylan goes there to try to figure it out, and then like it's not important really. But anyway, Raylan tries to like get transferred, and his transfer request clears. He promises Winona he's gonna move south, and obviously you're like, oh, that's never gonna happen. Rachel and David Vasquez inform him that they're building a RICO case against Boyd. And, oh God, who's this person? Fecus.
Fecus recanted his statement, getting Ava released from prison. Oh, that's right. And then Catherine offers him bank robbery work. So basically, Raylan meets up with Ava, and Raylan basically starts to like put her on a leash in order to use her to build the RICO case against Boyd, essentially. So she's like extremely conflicted because obviously she has feelings for Boyd, but then clearly her feelings haven't left for Raylan, and Raylan just, well, this bleeds into season 6 because Raylan starts to be a bastard towards Ava. We also skipped over the whole plot with Ava in prison, where Ava sees several murders, participates in a murder or two, and then becomes like hardened from the experience and then gets out.
Even though she already did all those things in the real world, like committing multiple murders herself and witnessing many murders.
Yes.
It's one of the show's weakest offerings, without doubt.
Her in prison, or
I do not recall enjoying her being in prison. A good part of the show.
It was definitely forced.
It just felt like they didn't know how to include Ava in the plot they wanted. Like they knew where they wanted the show to go and knew how Ava would fit into that, but not how she would work with the crows. So instead of writing it that way, they're just like, let's sideline her in prison, which is always a way to write crime shows, but it just doesn't work here.
Her, like, the whole reason she was in prison as well is because this one guy wanted to do sexual things with her, and then she was like, nah, and then he stabs himself and gets her framed for stabbing him, and then she gets like put away in prison. So it's like a very strange and odd manner of having her in there. At any rate, she's now out because that guy who stabbed himself recanted his statement from having people pressure him. Oh, okay. On to the last season.
Oh, and all the crows die except for Wendy.
Right.
I don't even remember what happens to her. I think she might just go back to Florida.
The moida of crows is complete,
and I'm pretty sure she shoots her brother.
Yeah, and Dewey dies like in a stupid way, which makes sense because he's been like a clown the whole show.
Yeah, he tries to do like some drug running of his own with a car, and it's really funny and silly, and then he dies.
Very good.
But anyway, they set up season 6. Like, the reason we're blitzing through that is because it leads more into this one. But like, you get excited because, you know, Boyd is back to his bank robbing ways, and like that got me excited, at least, with Mary Steenburgen's ideas, who is also sexually attracted to Boyd, which is really funny.
He's just got this sexual magnetism to him because of his charisma and his criminality.
His fucking wild hair just gets me every time. Just wispy, like crazily just bouncing in the wind with his hairline.
Ladies love it.
Yeah. Plus the way he speaks, his vocabulary, and smooth talking. All right, so Sam Elliott is on the scene. He owns or purchased this place that is now a pizza restaurant called Pizza Portal.
Oh, and wait, Dewey's still alive.
Yeah, Dewey was not killed in that season.
Boyd kills him at some point here.
Yes. He gets a restraining order against Raylan.
Fair.
Yeah. That's a pretty logical move. Anyway, Sam Elliott owns a pizza restaurant called Pizza Portal. And beneath this is like a giant safe filled with just stacks of cash.
Yep.
This guy, Sam Elliott, likes marijuana. It keeps his mind sharp.
Then he has a beard-toting bad man who is going around and putting pressure on folks to sell their land.
Eric Dillahunt.
Yes, because
Another
he
great
wants
character actor.
Yeah, he's really good. I don't remember his name in the show. Anyway, yes.
Ty Walker.
Ty Walker, yeah. So he kind of goes around and, like I said, he's leaning on people, like just old people who just want to live on a farm and, do farm stuff. And he's like, give us your land. We'll buy it for crazy amounts because Sam Elliott wants to turn this town into a profit-making machine of marijuana growth, I believe, is the whole premise of the land purchasing. Oh my God! Then there's this really big guy named Choo Choo.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Oh boy. How do we want to work our way through this? You said you're not too familiar with this one?
No, I'm familiar. It's just like my eyes start to glaze over when getting into all the pulpy stuff.
All right, let's go to the end and work our way back.
Like there's just 90 different named henchmen that all are fighting between the Sam Elliott's Dixie Mafia ties and then the Detroit people, and the whole goal is to just it's the culmination of all of the gang fighting is that Sam Elliott is the ultimate boogeyman who's come to take over Harlan.
Yeah.
And ultimately I'm just a little dissatisfied because he's less compelling than maybe Mags Bennett was, or just some of the other villains have been throughout the show. And so for them to show him as he's the ultimate bad guy to close out the show, and then really he just has a very simple business plan for taking over, and ultimately it doesn't work basically just because of Boyd, because Boyd wants to be the one that runs things, and so everybody double crosses everybody. And I don't remember who survives, but I'm pretty sure everybody just ends up shot. When Duffy, his assistant Mikey and Mary Steenburgen kill each other.
Yeah, that's a great scene, actually. That is a really, really good fight and brutal death that happens where Win Duffy is he's handcuffed beneath the table or something between the table and something, and these two people are fighting on top of him. They end up shooting each other, and he gets out of it, and he's completely broken by Mikey's death, because Mikey also was pissed that Duffy basically ratted out Grady, I believe.
Grady.
I couldn't even remotely tell you who Grady is. I don't remember that guy.
Loretta McCready.
Yep.
Delbert Grady.
Stop it with the names.
Delroy.
There's a guy also who's Sam Elliott's henchman, who's this
Seabass.
The hat guy?
Boone?
Yeah, Boone. Boone is this really quick, flashy gunman who just twirls his guns around.
A comic book character they found a way to insert into this live action drama.
Yeah, he initially when he came onto the scene, I was like, Jesus Christ. And then as it went on, I enjoyed his character a little bit more just because the actor was fine at what he was doing, but he was very much shoehorned in, and you're like, I wonder if there's gonna be a standoff between him and the guy who loves standoffs, and then that's how it ends. And there's lots of references to shooting in the chest or shooting in the head, and the guy shoots at Raylan's head, but because he's wearing a hat, it just goes through his hat. And before that happens, Ava basically does a little trick, and then that's what she does.
and she who does she shoot? Oh God, I had the thread and now it's gone. Vasquez wants to send Ava back to prison, and then she's like, no, I can get Boyd to confess to Dewey's murder. So she meets with Boyd to get the money and leave Harlan with him, but then she takes his gun and shoots him. And then Raylan shows up and she's like, fuck off, I'm leaving. And so she tries to leave. So they're looking for Ava, basically. Boyd is hospitalized for like the third or fourth time. And he tells Raylan to find Zachariah. Zachariah is the guy, Jeff Fahey, right? Who's the explosives expert. We didn't even go down the mine shafts, but that's fine. I don't want to fall down any mine shafts, even though we are.
Yeah, we're deep in the. We've dug quite greedily and quite deep here.
Basically, Raylan tries to strong arm all of the situations. He's like completely out on a limb legally, and then Art's like, bro, you can't do this, but okay, maybe I'll let you do this one time.
One last time, since that's been a very common thing that's been said repeatedly, is this is your last chance. If you go and do this extrajudicial series of murders, you're going to get in trouble. And then he just goes and kills 10 people, and they go, not good.
Yeah. So Ava tricks Boone into going to a fake handoff, and he takes Loretta. Raylan beats Markham's henchman until he gives up the location, and Boyd finds Markham and kills him. Raylan gets there before Boyd can kill Ava. Boyd tries to provoke him into killing him, and there's a great scene where, like, it's a character-defining scene where Raylan actually just doesn't do the thing Raylan always does, and he's like, nah, this time, get him arrested. And then he drives Ava away. But when he's driving Ava away, that's when Boone cuts him off, and Boone has Loretta, because Boone's been really creepy about Loretta. The girl from season 2, whose father was killed.
She's popped up repeatedly.
Yes,
she's in most of the seasons.
But she was introduced in season 2 anyway. Yeah. This is where the duel happens. And Boone and Raylan shoot at each other. And he shoots off his hat, but they're like both lying on the ground. And Boone is gonna shoot Raylan basically. But then Loretta steps on his hand. Boone dies after being shot by Raylan. Ava takes Raylan's car, though, and then it jumps like 4 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Ava... Oh, my God.
Yeah, Ava's living in California, and there's some convolution where Rachel brings a photo of Ava to Raylan, who lives in Miami now. And
yes,
Raylan goes to the prison to see Boyd one last time to convince him Ava is dead.
But that was after Raylan went to see Ava in real life. And then she breaks down and Raylan feels bad and is like, okay, I'm not going to give you up.
She has a kid, which is like implicitly Boyd's. So
yes,
Raylan knows that Boyd shouldn't be in this kid's life, so he tells Boyd Ava's dead, and that's how the series ends, is with them in prison. And because Boyd is like, why didn't you ever kill me? And he's just, we dug coal together.
Yeah, it's a pretty great way of ending the series. One, they're on two sides of the glass, right? They dug coal together. He just flat out lies to him about Ava and his son in order to save Ava and the son's life, basically. But it also provides
we're not so different, you and I.
Right. It provides closure as well for Boyd, despite it being a lie, because you can see him like letting go of trying to find Ava. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, what a great way to end. But wait, there's more. Bonus season time.
Yeah, before we get into that, I think
Bonus.
before we get into that, I think we should close our discussion of this show and then take a break and then move to that.
All right, fair enough.
Because
I didn't mean to get sort of zoned out there. It just is a lot of very pulpy crime stuff that I like the peculiar details of it. Like even just reading it, I read one sentence that was like literally just Choo Choo and Walker go and see sea bass and they beat up and I'm like, that's way too much detail to give to these henchmen that I know are all just gonna get shot in the head and die for no reason with no meaning. Like they are just gonna die. Some of them die off screen.
We forgot to mention the fact that Choo Choo is injured and he tries to kill himself on train tracks, and a train is coming at him to kill him, but they see the car in time and stop. So there's this tense scene of him about to die, and then he doesn't die.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the name Choo Choo. Oh boy.
All right, so yeah, that's this show on the whole. So I think a good place to start here in terms of what the show does well is like obviously as odd as some of the characters are, because the show never ever lets there just be like, oh, it's just some guy. Like there are very few nameless henchmen. Like they always choose to make the side characters colorful, be it stupid nicknames like Choo Choo or Seabass.
Yes.
Or like even in the first season, there's just like a hitman for the like Mexican cartel who's like, I'm writing a book about my experiences and recording everything, and I have all these rules. And then he just gets shot in the head and die. Like it's just like every character, like every little criminal character lives by like a weird code. Like honor among thieves is a huge theme in this show.
Yes. That dude is actually in Sons of Anarchy, I'm pretty sure. He's it's not worth going into detail about him, but he's introduced and like you're just like, oh god, I guess this is the criminal of the season, and then he's killed immediately.
Yeah, I mean this in terms of an FX show, FX is like one of the TV networks that like really hit its stride during like the this sort of golden age of prestige TV.
Mm-hmm.
And Justified probably gets its name mentioned somewhere on the list of like best TV shows ever, like amongst some of FX's other big hits, like Sons of Anarchy or The Shield, or stuff that came after it, like Fargo. Lost my train of thought thinking about Fargo. But that's what I was gonna say. There's a ton of characters between this and some of those other FX shows. They're like character actors that cycle through all of them.
Yes, exactly.
The Americans too. Like Margot Martindale's in like all of those shows. And
holy shit, I did not realize that.
Oh yeah, she's a main character in The Americans.
Good God, Stephen Root! Oh, what a disservice.
We never mentioned Stephen Root, the
lecherous judge.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what he is in the show. He's just like, who's got those bazungas? I just like going and drinking and staring at big cannons. Yeah, that's not the point of the show. But anyway, did you mute yourself?
I did somehow, yeah.
Glad I realized that. Yeah, I like I said to start this episode, I was very, very pleasantly surprised. Anna was as well. So, yeah, I know it sounds like maybe this show is
geared towards a male audience, which it probably is, but the writing is pretty strong in some seasons more than others, but the characters themselves are all very interesting, with the attention to detail, like you said, even with the characters who you're just like, oh, that guy's a throwaway character. The world itself is very real. I just went over the characters despite some of the flaws of Rachel and Tim, the handling of them, but like obviously it is all in service of the two characters on your screen, the sort of interplay between Boyd and Raylan, and how they continue to be like frenemies throughout, and they are like brotherly because they dug coal together. And I just really enjoy the fact that both of them are left standing and alive at the end, because they totally could have done some awful shit with Boyd or Ava, even, for instance. Like, just thinking about all the potentialities that could have been, that would have
Boyd not ending up in prison or dead would have been definitely a bad way to end the show.
Yeah, exactly. And the characters that did die, like Arlo, Raylan's father, even when he dies, they do a good job of showing like his haunting Raylan in certain aspects. Like he never came to terms with, he never came he his relationship with his father, there's no closure for him. He kind of reaches some closure. I forget which episode it is with Arlo.
Oh, with the ghost Arlo when they do a Dexter.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a critical component of Dexter. Is Dexter's dad is constantly ghost talking to him, telling him shit. It's insane.
What was I gonna say? Oh, but Harlan on the whole, like Harlan County and Raylan trying to get out of there is clearly a metaphor for just trying to move on with one's life and trying to come to terms with one's past, and how your past is always there and is always present, and you're just kind of like, okay, but what am I supposed to do? And this sort of criminal underworld that continues to invade Harlan is always also showing everyone that their hometown is going to change, and not necessarily for the better. And if you do move back to your hometown, right, you just go through all of the same tropes as Raylan does, where you run into people that you knew in high school or college or something else like that, and you're just like, what you're doing this now? Like, okay. And then other people come in and the town is changing, and yeah, and you try to do good or you try to do whatever, and then it just comes down to you justifying your actions in whatever way it is that you see fit. But I did mention this earlier at the beginning. I do very much appreciate that they show Raylan's like bastard side at times. Like when he is basically like he has Ava on a tight leash and is just continually pressing her for information for the Rico case. Like he is a genuine dick to her, because he threatens taking her back to prison if she doesn't follow through on this, which whatever that guy's name is, Vasquez, also is trying to follow through on that. So he's
Zach Vasquez.
Yeah, he's like, it's unclear whether or not he would actually follow through on it, but it doesn't really matter if he would or wouldn't, because the threat is very real for Ava. So even though those prison moments with Ava are like a little bit rough, it does help with the bigger narrative of showing like Ava being terrified of going back to prison, because like, fuck that. Like that just sounds like the worst threat ever.
Well, that's the whole point of her character, is she murders her husband because being with him is like being in prison. Not just because of the beatings, but just like the mental anguish of being with a simpleton. And that's like kind of her struggle as a character. The whole show is her fight for freedom, whether or not that's being with a man or not. Like
Yeah.
her role in the world is just very like she just can't make it work. And the one like hard part to get over in the first few seasons is why she just won't leave Kentucky. Because
Yes.
the whole time, it makes it seem like, wow, this is she's such a dumb, stupid bitch. Why didn't she just leave Kentucky to solve all the
Yeah.
problems? And it's like, well, that's the whole point of all these characters and mostly the whole show. It takes her a while to get to that stage, and once she gets out, it coincidentally is the same time Raylan gets out.
Yeah, exactly. And like that whole perspective of being like this dumb woman, why can't she just stop being a dumb woman? Like it just shows you how sexist, you know, people are with watching TV or even just approaching women in the real world, because you're like, wait, isn't that the same thing that Raylan's going through? Why aren't we judging him with that same mindset?
Well, I judge Raylan more because Raylan is dumb as a bag of rocks in the show.
Yeah, but he's good with his gun and he's good with his other gun and he looks really nice. So
That's true. He is good at shooting people and fucking. Those are the two things that he is.
And he looks very nice on the eyes.
He likes whiskey and ice cream. That's literally his character in a nut. That describes everything about his character.
Yeah, when he's spending time with his kid Willa at the end of the show, he's just like, all right, you want an ice cream? And his wife shows up and is like, why are you guys eating ice cream? And he's like, because she knew her alphabet or some bullshit. She knew her times tables. And he teaches his daughter to lie to her. All right, you're going to tell mommy that you know your times tables. But yeah, at any rate, Ava's character definitely pays off. I forget what state she's in, if it's California or Arizona.
It's California.
But yeah, like her raising the kid on her own, and I forget what job she's working, but like clearly she has a good life and a better life there than she did in Harlan and than she did with Boyd. And I don't know, everyone kind of gets their just desserts, and if you will, Winona and Raylan are kind of making it work because they're separated at the end, which makes sense because Raylan can't really be with someone.
Yeah, he's too damaged to have a permanent long-term relationship.
Yeah. Which is another thread that I think people miss from the show. And I mean, that gets into a larger narrative of damaged men throughout TV shows like Mad Men, specifically with like Don Draper, is that people will sort of lionize or they'll approach these people as heroes. Like, oh yeah, when times get tough and you can't think about your feelings and you hate your dad, whiskey. It's time for whiskey. Or like,
right, well, it's
if you're struggling with whatever's going on in your work life, then you should go find a pretty woman to get fucked. Like that's not the answer here, despite that's what Raylan does.
Well, it takes a while for the show more explicitly kind of reaffirms that idea in City Primeval, like really hammers it home in a more clear way. Because throughout the show, we're kind of looking at it through Raylan's perspective, where he still thinks he can make these relationships work whilst being the guy that he is, which is a maniac who has a short temper and loves shooting people and punching criminals. And so,
and then
like,
he
at the
mops
drop
it
of
up
a
with
hat,
him eating ice cream.
Yeah, so at the drop of a
himself.
hat, like, he'll just leave to go, into a burning building or whatever. So he is a hero in that sense, but he's not perfect, and the show never shies away from that. The one, like, I talked briefly about some of the show's more exploitative elements, and this is a problem with basically all cop shows, but
oh boy,
at some level, this show does just kind of say, like, the cops are right, and
that is
I can't
true.
really, but like the show ends by thanking like the people of Harlan, and then also it's like marshals, yeah. And
Despite the whole show showing the problems with being like an authority figure.
Well, they make police brutality into a joke.
Yeah, that's true.
Rather than, discussing the issue more seriously. And so I think while this is a great show and it does have great characters and it goes through a shitload of, pretty impressive storytelling in those aspects, ultimately it belongs in the same camp as stuff like CSI, which is that it, makes us more accustomed to violence and police brutality, and basically says, no, police brutality is necessary because the world is dark and people are bad.
Right, because if you came across a Raylan Givens in real life, you'd be like, wow, look at his hat. He's got a badge.
I'd run away.
He puts those bad guys away in whatever means necessary, and we need him. So yeah, you're right. It is definitely reinforcing that narrative. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean that's what are you gonna do? It's a Western show, but it's always gonna be about how the lawman is right and everyone else is wrong. And
it's important to recognize that fact, though.
I think I would have less of an issue. Like I wouldn't even bring it up if they didn't end the series by literally doing like U.S. Marshals, yeah.
They did do that. Yeah, that's right.
Because it's just it's way too on the nose it's too easy for me to pick on by being like, really, you're gonna have a guy who in the last season has like literally characters that are just being harassed by him and he's just breaking the law. Like, never mind the extrajudicial killings, but just his harassment of Dewey Crow, where basically the show is like, well, he's a fascist. Like, Dewey Crow's a racist idiot, so it's okay. And it's like, well,
he also is very
kind of
pitiful.
A slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you genuinely feel bad for him
because you're supposed to empathize with Dewey.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the show is like in some way Boyd's character is about how ideology gets in the minds of simple people, especially the people of Harlan County, because Boyd is able to convince anyone basically of anything. Because
whether it's Christ or Nazism.
So exactly. In the first season, he's able to get people to be neo-Nazis and to, resent the Nazis and just live the clean path of the Lord. Even though his aims are the same, and it ultimately points to, maybe these ideologies have the same aims to control.
Which is really fascinating that, like, you find yourself also rooting for his character, like, later. Like, just simply because of the actor and, like, how he embodies that character. It's just funny how, like, the show flips that of, like, he was a Nazi, but now he's trying to be good.
When he's in prison and he takes his shirt off to do the bench and the black guys are like, nah.
Yeah.
Because he just has swastikas and shit.
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, like, the show is more than just pure entertainment. It's more than just a procedural drama or sitcom or like neo-western. Like, it does manage to blend a lot of those elements together through its fun characters, for lack of a better word, and their interactions, as well as just like pretty solid writing at times. Because I will say that this show, that's something that I tried to, I wouldn't say I recognize, but I try to really hone in on that. This show's writing stands out as opposed to other shows where like something will happen in a show and it just like really bothers me because it's just not good. They could have gone in all these different possibilities and you're like, you opted to do that for what reason? What's the reason behind this, right? Yeah, I don't know if you have any other closing thoughts, but
I was gonna say, like, obviously the most complex relationship is the one between Boyd and Raylan, and that's what the show explores the most. Is sort of Raylan's lawlessness as a lawman and Boyd's tendency towards order and creating structure in a world of being a chaotic criminal. I do agree with you. I think this is one of the best crime TV shows out there. I think it's tough because that seems to be the genre in which we've had some of the best TV ever written. And so it's in a very competitive category to sort of, get to the top, to be in conversations of like, oh yeah, what are just like the best TV shows ever? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, this has nowhere near the depth or complexity of The Sopranos. It's just nowhere near as cinematic or as tight as Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. It's nowhere near as clever as something like Fargo. But in the realm of the other FX shows that it's compared to, other than Fargo, which is a bad comparison because Fargo can get a little too clever and a little too cute at times.
Yes.
I think this is better than like Sons of Anarchy, which is probably the easiest comparison because they came out around the same time on the same network.
And people love that show. People are obsessed with that.
Well, yeah, because that more revels in the idea of lawlessness, whereas this is like about the battle between law and chaos.
I never finished that. I think I had like one season left.
You know how in this show everybody gets kablamoed?
I don't want to go on too much of a tangent. I think we gotta stop when the stopping is right. But no, I agree with you because like there's another show that I didn't finish or haven't picked back up with, which was Peaky Blinders, which is a really enjoyable show to watch, but it gets really caught up, similarly with Sons of Anarchy, with the violence. And like, not that Sons of Anarchy did this, it did it a couple times, but just like doing like extreme violence just for the sake of doing it and like shock value, because Sons does that and it does it well, but then other times it just does it and you're just like, Jesus, that was unnecessary. And Peaky Blinders does that even like worse in some ways. Yeah, but anyway, like bringing it back to this to close it out. Yeah, for it knows what it is and it follows through on that, and it doesn't get too bogged down in whether it's violence or whatever, some strange like side plots and stuff. It does at times, but not to the extreme I think that you're saying some of the other shows on the same network or other shows that are highly regarded or have like cult followings. And quite honestly, for me, I think that this show is very undervalued and underappreciated. I actually have never talked to someone who's seen this whole thing.
Oh, this show's very popular. People loved the show. There was a reason it ran for 6 seasons, and then even got a reboot. People liked it. It was well reviewed by critics.
I might just be talking to the wrong people, but I think that those other shows that we mentioned, people just turn up for those more.
Oh, like Sons of Anarchy and
Peaky Blinders.
Well, Peaky Blinders is more style than it is anything else, and so I've never even made it through the second. I hesitate to say it. I think Peaky Blinders may just be a bad show. Like I can't even get through season 2.
I think you might be onto something. It's very heavily style, not necessarily over substance, but it definitely starts to really sacrifice that with some of the things that happen. I think we got to close this out, or at least pause for us to then finish off with Primeval. So we will be right back.